My dear brothers and sisters, everything will be different. That impression have been said and heard around in these days when most of the humankind struggling with coronavirus pandemic. Everything will be different. But if you can recall, since the beginning, after Adam and Eve fell, things became different. The creation of God became different. And along the history of Israelites, everything became different. When they began with God's plan, they began the Exodus, the journey to the Promised Land. But as we heard from the first reading, the unfaithful people of God by themselves went to death, locked them up in the tomb. But even so, God would make the difference. God promised He could raise the dead, and not only raising the dead to life, but also lead them to a better life. St. Paul in his letter explained, a better life is a life that lives in the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God. That can make the difference between a person who does not live in the Spirit of God and a person who lives in the Spirit of God. They cannot be the same. And here, the realistic question comes into the scenario. You and I, we are the people of the Spirit of God or not? So how can we make the difference between living in good spirit and living in bad spirit, especially in this time of our lives, when we live in this historic pandemic, when we live in a pandemic Lenten journey? What is the difference? There are many differences that we can make in our life, bad or good. When people live in difficulty, two attitudes may make them to be a different person. Good attitude will enable that person to live in hope, to be able to enkindle the hope in others, so that the community, the surrounding people who live with him or her, can see the light to walk toward. A person who lives in bad spirit keeps whining, complaining, desolated. Isolation should not be desolated. Isolation should bring a person living in good spirit to consolation. Just 2 days ago, I don't know if you were able to join Pope Francis in his special blessing to the city of Rome and to the world. But I believe whoever joined him through live broadcast would feel he or she touched by the tumbling walk of an old shepherd, walked by himself in the middle of Rome. But he did not walk to anywhere but God. He did not gather people around the world for anything else but God. He did not bless the world with any wishes as people would have been done, but he blessed the world with the real presence of Christ in the sacrament, in the blessed sacrament, in the Eucharist. That sign should keep us alive, because when we participate in this Eucharist, we should not be just seeing the miracle of love happen at the altar, but you and I take part in this Eucharist. Take part in it to listen to what God leads us to. Take part in giving Him, handing Him what's going on in our lives. Participate in the Eucharist so that He can continue to fill us with His graces, so that we can be strong, hopeful, so that we can enkindle others in the middle of darkness. And the darkness is not about the absence of light. The darkness where absence of hopes are. And since you are not here, you may be sitting at your home, office, in this city or elsewhere. You would be curious about what's going on around this cathedral. I would like to tell you, if you take the picture of the surrounding of this cathedral, you would think of something is dead. Not many people around. Not many people in the church. I heard there have been priests for the first time of his life celebrating Mass by himself without the congregation. They were moved with tears. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. Like you are sitting from your house participating in this Eucharist. It's a good sign, because social distancing cannot distance us from God and one another. The death of Lazarus, the death of the unfaithful people could not distance God coming to us. In contrast, the bad things happen, as you heard in the Gospel of John, moved God, touched God, and saddened God. So believe this. God is not happy with us right now, because we are crying, because sometimes we are helpless. We cannot control the virus. We cannot control our safety. But God can. God can. So as we encounter the moment when the people who were mourning for the death of their friend and beloved see Christ and let Christ come close to their lives, they rejoice. They were able to be renewed by God. Let us pray for one another. And I would like to encourage you at this moment of your life. Maybe it will never happen again. Now you are very rich in time. You have a lot of time because social distancing and stay at home orders and curfews and some restriction of life gives you more time. Lessen the busyness that we often had outside of the house and outside of the heart. Now let us focus to take advantage of our time to communicate with God, to talk to Him, to make conversation so that we can be converted. Be focused so that we can value whoever around in our life, whatever we do have in our life, and be grateful. And show that gratitude with real action, with caring, with loving, with good deed, with good charity action. And during this time of our life, enrich your faith by participating in all live masses, because in the past you were busy, you had to work, you have to go to school, you don't have time for God and the church. Now take advantage of this time. Take advantage of the social distancing to come close to one another in the church, so that together we can console one another. Together we can take into us what God, what Jesus felt for the humans. I hope that the words of God, I hope and pray that the lessons throughout the human history which have been taken into the account of the scriptures can be good lessons for us. Go back to God. Go back to our real beings. Go back to the beauty, loving creature that God created.